What's going on, everybody? It is Wednesday night, hump night for everybody out there. And this is welcome to the Geek Side. We're starting off the two of us. Randy and I are piloting the ship to begin things. We are expecting Jer and Johnny to come in here at some point. So we'll see if that manifests itself into reality. What's going on, Randy? How are you, man?
Not doing too bad. This week has definitely been better than last week, since last week for me at work was, end of the month, and it gets really hectic, and you got to put in a lot of hours. But this week's been good. I have not watched Dynamite yet. The wife and I actually decorated the Christmas tree tonight, so I DVR'd it just so I have something to look forward to tomorrow and just try to stay away from all the, Twitterverse and Instagram and all that stuff. And hopefully it's a really good show tonight. There's a lot of great matches I was really excited for, so just have to wait and see. How about yourself?
I have not seen it yet. I don't know when I will. Hopefully nobody comes in the chat and spoils anything. Maybe remind our group chat no spoilers, just for yourself, so you don't get spoiled on anything. But there's a lot to talk about tonight. Oddly enough, we did our first episode of this last week, and we brought up some possibilities just for said possibilities to somehow creep themselves into at least reported existence. From Fightful, we have the potential of a CM Punk Stone Cold match, which we'll talk about here shortly. Jensen Ackles and Jared Padalecki are teasing a supernatural revival. My thinking there is it's probably a combination of a supernatural revival / let's not waste the Winchester storyline we had going on. Crystal Lake, Friday the 13th Friday the 13th fans are used to a certain type of movie, if you will, and I'm not sure you're going to get that in this series. From the sounds of it, the series is not going to have that campy Friday feel to it. Speak of the devil and he shall appear. Yet it's not letting me move anybody into the middle. I don't know why that is. Let us move people around last night, so I don't know what's going on here. Maybe it's a mess up on the graphics. What's going on, Johnny?
Nothing.
No Dynamite spoilers for Randy. He's worried about that.
Okay.
I'm assuming you've watched.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't. So, I mean, not that I might spoilers, but I don't want Randy to be spoiled. But yeah, there's a lot to talk about tonight. Didn't even touch on it all there. Let's start here. I know we're expecting Jer at some point. Let's start here. PS1 games. I don't know about the two of you. We talked about the Nintendo 64 last week, and the Nintendo 64 was a console that I really liked. Don't get me wrong, because some of the titles for it were very unique, exclusive to that system, William. But the PlayStation 1 is something I owned. The PlayStation 1 is something I played with Johnny quite a bit. We played lots of different shit on PS1. Where's PS1 fall for you guys? Like, maybe not the exact position of your favorite consoles or anything, but like, you have fond memories of PS1, because honestly, that's probably the system I owned the most games for before the digital era kicked in.
Well, for me, it was actually the first console I actually ever bought for myself. All the other ones that I've ever played or owned were purchased for me. So the fact that this was the first time that I got to buy my own console, the first 3 games I owned were Dark Forces, Rebel Assault 2, and the WCW game. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but I had those were the 3, and then eventually I picked up Independence Day. And I think Wild Arms. So those were the first 5 games I owned for that console, and yeah, I got a lot of fond memories of it, especially with Final Fantasy 7, 8, and 9, and obviously the Resident Evil series. Silent Hill being the first game to ever creep the ever living shit out of me, because the atmosphere and it was just absolutely amazing at the time, unlike anything I'd ever seen before. So yeah, I've played a lot of games for that.
I mean, yeah, I played a lot of games for it. But for me, this console that, the PS1 for me was more about sports. It was much better at sports titles, just because it was the more traditional, controller format layout, right? Like, it wasn't, you didn't have to worry about your C buttons or any weird buttons that were sort of awkward for sports games. So that's what I think of. I think of the sports titles for PS1, more than anything else, because it didn't have any other real advantages for me. I think the first person shooters were better on the N64. I think the N64 had better first party titles, with having, the Nintendo backing, and that sort of stuff was just better. And of course, wrestling games were just better on the N64. And those were the things that were better. Yeah, the PlayStation did sort of create the horror game genre, with Resident Evil and Silent Hill. But, overall, it's still... Sony didn't really get a hold of the gaming, of the console wars as they were, until the PS2. That's where they walked away.
What was you just brought up Resident Evil, which is obviously a massively successful PlayStation and Sega Dreamcast. Actually, even Nintendo GameCube back then. I don't think they had anything on the N64. I could be wrong.
Actually, Resident Evil 2 did get released on N64.
Really? Oh.
Yep.
And I gotta find the cartridge and see what that looks like now. Some of the N64s have unique cartridges. Maybe it's just a generic gray one. But so Resident Evil was pretty big. Turok was pretty big. What was the other one?
Turok.
It was
So
was Turok
Turok was. I remember Turok being big on the N64.
I don't remember Turok on the PlayStation.
so Turok might have been exclusive to the 64, but there was another. I can't believe I can't remember the title.
Dino Crisis?
That's the one. Thank you. You guys remember playing Dino Crisis at all? It definitely had like a Resident Evil feel to it.
Well, it helps when Capcom made that one too. So, do you guys remember when Square Enix back then, SquareSoft threw their hat in the ring with Parasite Eve? Because that was, even though it was more of a horror RPG, that is still more. It was definitely like a survival horror RPG for the most part. It was actually a really fun game that came out after, I think, around the same time Dino Crisis came out. I think.
I mean, I vaguely remember the title, but it's not something I ever really played.
I just remember the dinosaur out. Like it's basically Resident Evil with dinosaurs.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
I think they were talking about doing a remake too of that.
I mean, I'd sign up for it. I mean, just looking at this little graphic here that I snipped off and posted, I see multiple games that Johnny and I played together. Like Tiger Woods '99 was the golf game I had for PS1. Played it quite a bit. The other ones that stand out is Driver, WWF Attitude. I remember that being like the first wrestling game that I owned, where like it wasn't the first game I owned, but the first one I owned where like there's a shit ton of blood in that game if you want. Like you can really just light someone up. Do you guys remember anything about WWF Attitude? I remember the terrible button sequences to do a finisher.
See, I didn't play that one. I played SmackDown. So I remember that one being one of my first ones on the PlayStation. Trying to think if that was the only other. I think it was really the only one I actually played, because by that time it was getting close to the time for the PS2 to launch, and that's when I started really getting heavily into the wrestling games. It was on PS2.
Oh, I absolutely remember Attitude. But for me, the memories are more about it for the N64 than the PlayStation.
Well, hard to forget No Mercy on the N64.
Oh yeah, but I'm specifically mean Attitude, because it was so much better than what had come before it. You know, it was the bar for a little bit there until, you know, the THQ AKI made its way to the WWF first. You know, till that point they'd been WCW, but then they switched, you know, right after this with, you know, Wrestlemania 2000 and then obviously No Mercy. But I always liked Attitude because I liked the Acclaim versions. Like Warzone was okay, but Attitude hit its mark, and I liked the Acclaim stuff. Even with, you know, the awkwardness of the button prompts, once you got used to them, it was good. You know, you could learn a moveset and you know, I figured out pretty good. It's no different than like, you know, learning your combos in Mortal Kombat and stuff like that. You know, once you learn them, you're golden. And I liked them because it added that, you know, that the career mode in Attitude was so much more fun than anything that had come to that point. You know, because you actually had that sort of linear progression of the way they presented it. You know, having your Raws and house shows and pay-per-views and things like that was more sort of authentic-esque than everything that had been, because everything had just been, you know, sort of exhibition based before that, and it introduced the weapons and things of that nature. And I liked the you know, I felt Acclaim always had a better grasp of additional characters, you know, who didn't really have anything to do with anything, but were sort of that, you know, Easter egg kind of thing. And I love that, you know, and then they continued that with the ECW series they did, you know, which is also there. Hardcore Revolution, I loved. And then, you know, you had Anarchy Rules exclusively on the PlayStation, which I remember playing that because it was the first, you know, it was the first wrestling video game that had a full-fledged barbed wire system in it. You know, it had the barbed wire matches in it, and the dumpster matches, and Inferno, and it had Fire, and it had all of those things, and I loved it. And you had that sort of, that vocal interaction that was actually good, with the pre-match stuff, and they're memorable. I still remember quite a few of them.
I'm just seeing on this graphic now, and I legitimately didn't notice it until right now. That there is a Sesame Street Sports. Wonder what sports that game included.
I can only imagine. Did either of you play VR baseball?
VR baseball? No.
It was
Maybe.
that was one of the ones on PlayStation that I played a lot of. Obviously, I played a lot of Madden as well, but I also played Game Day because Game Day was actually good back then until it wasn't.
I remember having, I think it was Triple Play 99.
Played that one too.
The PS1. I don't know if VR rings a bell. I know my brother had that Powerpuff Girls game. Whoops.
Yeah, about that.
Yeah, he had a slight obsession. I remember I had a Digimon game for PS1. I think it was the first one they ever did. And like I could never even get out of like the first area. Like I had no fucking clue what I was doing. It was really frustrating. Excuse me. I'll squeeze Jared in here, or maybe we won't. We can hear him if he talks, but for some reason I don't have his video, so I'll work on that. What's going on, Jared?
Hello, you can hear me?
We can hear you. I just don't have
that's
video.
that's really weird.
Not on your end. Like I can see you in the green room. It just doesn't have.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, WWE's Attitude absolutely sucked. Holy hell, that game was bad. I was so excited to rent it from Rogers Video, brought it home, and I thought the entrances were cool, and that's it. Everything else was just you had to hit like 17 buttons to hit a drop kick, and no.
You were just bad at it.
Give me Power Move Pro Wrestling. That's a real video game.
I remember being incredibly underwhelmed by Warzone. Warzone, it was the first PS1 game I owned.
Yeah.
And I felt like it did nothing for me. And honestly, one of the biggest piss offs about that game, I mean, it's got to be one of the final Bret Hart WWF games.
It came out after he'd left the company.
Yeah, and he was still in it.
Yeah.
But so when you'd pick Shawn Michaels, or I believe Triple H as well, they gave you the long version of the DX song. Or I guess the normal one, but it has the longer intro. Doesn't just go right to break it down. And the way the entrances are, you never hit the main part of the song. You never got to it. So you only heard "Are you ready?" I was just like, as a kid, I was like, what the fuck is this? Come on. I know, such a thing to be crying.
Honestly, I mean, the thing is something like that, when we finally get further down the line with wrestling games, as we saw how much the entrances improved and how they really tried to make it as realistic as possible. Just the fact that, you're playing a wrestling game and you're hearing the actual song, not just some MIDI or synthesized version of it. And you get hyped and you want to see everything play out as you would normally see it on TV. And when it doesn't, it's disappointing. So I can understand that gripe.
Jerry, you have any favorite PS1 games that you just have fond memories of?
Probably Resident Evil 2 is the one I spent a considerable amount of time playing. I'd get the guide and I'd go through it, and I'd invite my buddy over and we'd, order pizza and play Resident Evil 2 all night. And it was fun. Oh wait, what's that on the Another garbage game, Hardcore Revolution. Okay, this game, I still have 22 years later, the cardboard ad that they put outside GameStop for that game. I was so hyped for that game. And when I got it, it was a re-release of WWF Warzone.
Attitude, but yes.
Whatever. It was garbage. But you got to do Dusty Rhodes in a barbed wire match, so not so bad, but I hated the gameplay so much. And apparently, Johnny might be able to back me up on this, but didn't Acclaim end up purchasing a percentage of the company during that whole process?
I think they were supposed to.
Yeah, there was some financial transaction there that was like really weird.
Yeah, I think they were supposed to get a piece of the company, but they never did.
I think they might have gone bankrupt before anything ended up going through. Yeah. Because they were supposed to get something more than just, profit from the video game, which was like unheard of at the time. But I mean, ECW's finances were not the greatest anyways. So it explains why they needed the extra influx of money.
Yeah, it was yikes. It was very yikes at that time.
Hey, Sean, did Kramer walk in behind you?
No, not yet. Give it time.
Okay.
Speaking of that, I was just watching the episode of Seinfeld last night where Elaine has like Bizarro Jerry and Bizarro Kramer, and she ends up going over to their apartment, and it's basically Jerry's apartment, but everything's in reverse. It's pretty funny. Speaking of funny, see where this conversation goes. Last week on episode 1 of Welcome to the Geek Side, we brought up the possibility of, what if, Stone Cold and CM Punk fought at WrestleMania, which we'll see where this goes. But to Johnny's chagrin, I think it was the following day, not even 24 hours after we'd done the show, Fightful comes out with, so WWE is thinking along the same lines as you. So let's talk about it. Good, bad, and the ugly. And I know Johnny has lots of ugly for it. Stone Cold Steve Austin versus CM Punk at WrestleMania. Could it happen? Seems like it's a possibility. Randy, I feel like you might have more positive things to say than Johnny. Not that it needs to be positive. You want to shit on it, shit on it. But where do you fall with this? The likelihood of it happening, and do you even want it to happen?
Like the fan in me would have liked to see this happen when both of these guys are kind of in a good spot wrestling wise. Obviously, with Stone Cold, we know he's lost a little bit of a step, and clearly Punk seems to be a little more brittle than he used to be. So we need to see him actually be healthy. But the promo battles, them going back and forth at each other, I could get down with that. I wouldn't mind seeing that. That's something I know they can do still. I'd just be more concerned about the quality of the match we would get, and really just some of the spots that we would have to see. We would see. Beyond that, as fun as it would be, I would not be exactly shilling out money for it. Even though, even if I am going to WrestleMania, that's not exactly something that was on my dance card that I would be excited for.
Who next? Who wants to jump in? Free for all. Don't worry, Johnny. Matt's not here tonight, so we're not going to have a repeat of that discussion.
Johnny's excited for it. He was texting me after the show last week. He's like, I can't wait to see CM Punk get hit with a Stone Cold Stunner. It's going to be the best. 72,000 people are going to jump to their feet like when Andre slammed Hogan. Right, Johnny?
I cared about this match a great deal 13 years ago. I don't care now. You know, the ship has sailed on this. I don't. It's not going to be what it should have been or what it could have been. You know, this isn't two ships coming together at the perfect time to have the perfect match. This is. I don't care.
What?
You know, like it wouldn't be the like we talk about the promos. Like the promos would be great. What makes you think we'd get them? You have to get Austin to commit to a weekly schedule for a month and a half to 2 months prior to WrestleMania to do that. And I don't need that kind of TV time committed to this is the match that would most make CM Punk hit the hypocrite. Because he's walking into the company and he's taking a spot not just from one guy who has been working their ass off to get on WrestleMania, but from 2 guys for this program.
Not wrong.
And
Punk is now Dwayne.
Yeah, well, it's exactly that, right?
I don't hate that idea, but as far as like making that sort of the build to a Mania match, it can't be Steve Austin. Because that makes even less sense.
See, I like that you brought that up because even though I liked what Owens and Austin did Mania night, I did not like the route they went to get there. To me, if you're doing this match, you are selling it as a money match. You do need Stone Cold Steve Austin to commit to maybe not 2 straight months of TV, but 4 or 5 Raws in a 2.5 month span. I'm assuming it's going to be Raw. A 2.5, 3 month span. You want to build it up in the way that they did Hogan Rock. I don't want to see, well, he's going to come on whatever Stone Cold's talk show is, and maybe they'll get into a fight and it'll become a match and send down a referee. No, you would have to market it as this big, massive thing. So in terms of like the spectacle and like if it were a Hollywood movie, which it is not, of course I would love to see CM Punk and Stone Cold Steve Austin because they're 2, generational WWE talents, if you will, in terms of the runs they had. Austin obviously on a level that maybe nobody's touched. That's the only way I'd want it. I don't want the Kevin Owens thing, basically. I just don't. I'm well aware that whatever we would get in the ring from them is going to have some sort of like street fight feel more than likely because it's not going to be able to deliver. They're going to have to find a way to stretch it out for at least 15 minutes probably and do what you can. I think the promos would be fun, but I don't know if Stone Cold would commit to showing up 4, 5, 6 times prior to Mania. And to me, that's the only way I would want it. I think like in terms of spectacle and money on that night, it is the biggest thing. Frankly, like if they're on the show, it's bigger than any other match is going to be on that weekend in terms of the publicity it gets from the general public. But in terms of like long-term health of the company, it's probably better to have CM Punk versus Seth Rollins. That's how I feel anyway.
Yeah, no, that makes sense because they're already planting the seeds for it, and we're 4 months out from Mania. They can definitely get 4 months of TV out of those 2. Especially if Punk decides to show up every second week. So,
but that's a different conversation.
What, you didn't stay up till 10:50 p.m. this week to see if Punk was going to show up?
No, but I don't stay up to 10:50 on the Monday night to watch Raw ever. I'll watch Raw in the highlights the next day.
But you're missing out on the longest running episodic television show in history.
Oh, sure, it's great. And if there's a good match on it, I'll watch it on Tuesday. If there's a promo that I can't miss, I'll watch it on Tuesday. But I'm not going to slog through the 3-hour commercial fest on Monday night when I can't skip around and just watch the segments I want to watch.
You don't want to watch Piper Niven and Chelsea Green wrestle?
Well, it depends on who they're wrestling against.
What
'Cause
kind
I
of
was-
WWE universe member are you?
I love them. I love them. That's why we comment on last week's video that I'm a hater. I'm not. I watch it every week. I watch Raw.
Craig, he's
I wa-
called you out.
I watch Raw. I watch NXT, and I watch SmackDown. But I watch them in highlights. I watch every PLE. But I watch.
What?
PLE. I said it. I said
What's
PLE. Yeah. I watch them all. I'm watching Deadline on Saturday night, but I don't watch
Saturday
them-
night.
No, NXT on Saturday
Oh.
night.
Okay.
He's watching a Baron Corbin main event.
Yeah, and I'm okay with that because this run of Baron is the
Dog
best
you
run
need
of
therapy.
Baron in. This is the best run Baron's ever had in the company, and I'm okay with that. Like, I don't hate WWE. I like it. I enjoy it. This is the best creative run they've had in 20 years for me.
So, sorry, go ahead.
But I don't care about Punk in it because he's just, you're plugging him in and not doing a very good job of it so far.
To me, it's too early on that front. It sounds like they rushed. I didn't see Raw this week. I knew he wasn't going to be on. So I heard
But that's the problem. They're waiting. By the time we actually get to Punk having a direction, you're looking at 2 to 3 weeks post the big moment, post the big return. Well, that's the strike while the iron is hot.
Like, if they gonna keep him out of matches all the way till the Rumble.
I think that's what the direction is. And if he's not
time to fill,
if he's not in the Rumble, obviously they're setting up the potential for him and Drew McIntyre, considering McIntyre's promo on Monday night. So
seems like they're setting up the potential for him versus the entire fucking locker room at this point.
Well, honestly, I love heel McIntyre. He's I enjoyed his face run, but it's time. It was time for a character change. There was time to spice things up, and I always enjoyed, the Scottish psychopath versus the face. So I think this is gonna be a really good run for him. And I do see the potential for him and Punk at the Rumble, just because I do think they're gonna go to the direction of Seth Rollins and Punk at WrestleMania.
I've said it a billion times on here. I'm clearly a Punk guy, but I seen Drew McIntyre's comments in his promo. It's like, how can you not agree with everything he just said, right? It's all true. And then Seth Rollins had his thing with who's the GM? I'm sorry, I'm not WWE.
Adam Pearce.
And it's like, okay, so they're very much playing into the whole hypocrite angle here, and he's hiding his true colors. Let me ask you guys this: if it is Stone Cold, and they do, the Hogan Rock thing where they're going to build it up as this big match at WrestleMania 40, how do you book it? Like, not the match itself, but how do you bring the two guys together, other than just having one of them call the other one out? I have my idea on how to book it, so I'll go first and give you guys a chance to think on that. And I'm not saying this would happen. I'm saying this is what I would like to happen. Is you have Punk in the Rumble, and it's probably in the back half of it somewhere, and there's Punk and a couple other guys in there, and Austin's music hits, and Austin's an entrant in the Rumble, and Austin eliminates Punk. This is stealing a little bit from I think it was Jericho Michaels. Punk is just incensed. There goes his chance at getting the title shot, gets back in the ring, eliminates Austin, and beats him down. Carry on to Mania. You get your big pop with an Austin surprise at the Rumble, and you get Punk go heel. I don't know. To me, that's better than, hey, you want to fight at Mania?
I think Punk as a heel would work, but I don't know if Austin would be in the Rumble to do it.
Yeah, that part
There might
doesn't
be.
make any sense because then it's the babyface picking the fight, and that doesn't really work as well.
We could have Punk turn heel through promos and goad Austin into the match. Like we could have Punk drive down to Texas and go beat up a cow or something. That might make Austin angry.
So this is the problem you run smack into, is that neither of them are centralized pieces of the fan base right now. Like they both, it sounds sort of crazy to say it, but they both rely on nostalgia a little bit. Because Punk still has to be reintroduced to an entirely new generation of fan. Like it's been 10 years since he was last there. There is a large portion of the fan base that has no idea who this guy is outside of perhaps AEW, if they even watch that. And that's not likely, and Austin is, the old school legend you trot out once or twice a year, and that's it. Yes, they're going to know him from last year, from the Owens stuff. I guess at this point that was 2 years ago now. So it's, you don't have to reintroduce him, but Punk doesn't have the. There's no good way to make this match because you can't even go back to the old standard. If we're doing this in, when we wanted it back in, 09 or 10, something like that, then yeah, you could sit on, Straight Edge Society Punk versus, the biggest, alcoholic superhero in pro wrestling history. The booking would have written itself then, but now it doesn't. Even if you turn Punk heel, it doesn't make sense to retread that angle because they basically did the dollar store version of that with the Punk Jericho feud for 25. Like, are you just going to redo that? Only now you have Austin? Like, no, there's no.
I wasn't trying to say like it was likely Stone Cold's going to work the Rumble. Again, it's not a prediction. It's just if I had a bunch of money to spend to hire someone to come in and do his thing, I just thought it'd be fun to have Austin have his big Royal Rumble surprise moment. And I think, Punk getting eliminated by a older, very retired Stone Cold Steve Austin in a Rumble that he's trying to win to main event Mania, like in his mind, in his character's mind, he wins the Rumble, he could go fight Roman on night 2. If it doesn't happen, he blames Austin. So that's why I had him go back into the ring, and then he has his heel moment where it's not really Stone Cold picking the fight. He's in the match. It's more, was it Jericho and Michaels that this happened with?
They did do that.
Maybe it wasn't them.
It was because Jericho was out first and screwed with Michaels because it was Christian at the entrance, and then Jericho got tossed and then came back later.
And he eliminated Jericho. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, you're talking about that was the WrestleMania 19 angle, right?
Yeah. The Rumble before like that. Yeah.
Anyway, something like that is the only way I could see it like organically working. Because like, hate to agree with Johnny, but like the straight edge, not that Punk isn't straight edge, because I think he's a perfect example of it.
It's not culturally relevant like it was then.
That, and he also doesn't go around preaching about it a bunch either.
Yeah.
Isn't in AEW, doesn't on social media all that much. Like if it's straight edge day or whatever, and he'll allude to it, but he's not obsessively going out there about it.
Speaking of which, did you see on Dynamite a couple months ago how they redid the finish of that angle at WrestleMania? Between Sammy and Jericho? And Sammy wore the exact same tights that Jericho did at Mania.
Oh, yes.
That was perfect.
That's how I knew it was happening before the match even started. I saw the tights and I was like, oh.
Yep.
It was more of a, is that what I think it is?
Yeah.
Again, like the spectacle would be cool, but I also think like if Punk does this match, he finds himself right back where he was when he fought Undertaker at WrestleMania. Because my guess is Punk is not going over Austin. Maybe they swerve us, and that's Austin's last match that he does. But my guess is Austin goes over, and then Austin leaves the next night or whatever, and may never go back again. And CM Punk is 5 months into what we believe is a 3-year contract. So,
it would kill Punk dead pretty much if Austin just beats him and leaves. I mean, Owens is kind of in that realm of you can beat him and he's still over. But I think Punk right now, just because he's returning, he needs to stay hot. You can't cut his legs off and, expect him, he's just going to come out on Raw the next night. And, well, no, he's the guy who got his ass kicked by a, 60-year-old former wrestler.
Owens,
Yay, Punk.
for Owens. It worked for Owens because the whole rub was him spending the months and months before calling him out, and goading him into, being stone cold one more time. And it worked because it happened. He went out there, they did the interview, and he goaded him into being stone cold one more time. And it led to a match that was far greater than anyone could have expected. Like I said last week, nobody expected Steve Austin at 56, 57, whatever he was at the time, to be taking a suplex on the floor at a stadium show. Everybody expected it would be right hand, left hand, stomp a mud hole, and stunner, and then call it a night and drink some brewskis. That's what everyone expected. And here Austin is going out there and having an honest-to-God wrestling match. And sure, it was heavy on gimmick, but it's going to be heavy on gimmick, because it has to be. It's WrestleMania. Austin hasn't wrestled a match in, close to 20 years. So it's, you're going to rely on the gimmick. But he still went out there and had a match, a real one.
Well, plus Austin back then was like, that was his style. I mean, go watch him in Love from, Over the Edge.
Yep.
Same match. So he didn't really deviate from the norm, even though it was smoke and mirrors.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it also helped that it was 20 years later, so his body really was healed up. He's even said many times, I'm healed. I could go. I just don't want to. So, but obviously the right opportunity, came up, and it helped Owens a lot. It helped, he showed up at a WrestleMania. He, even though, he saw someone take the worst stunner ever. I mean, I don't want to even think about
it. I don't know about that.
I'm talking about Vince.
I know that. I don't.
I'm just like,
that's still not Vince's
so bad.
It was bad.
It was, but it still wasn't as bad as that first one. And it wasn't as bad as Linda's. Let's be honest.
It was pretty close to Linda's. It almost looked like a copy of it.
But as far as
Vince looked like Linda.
As far as booking these two, the only thing I can think about it is the only way to do it, to me, the only way you can really even get Austin in the picture is just Punk's promo work. He's kneeling, taking shots at legends because he's gone full heel and just says the right things in the right, go down to Texas and make comments and just all of a sudden there, Austin shows up because he just happens to be there. And, they have a little face off. They talk on the mic a little bit and, they go their separate ways. Well, mine is probably the stunner he would give, but it's just the idea that it would really take, I don't know. I think the only way you really get for them to work it is get Punk to the heel side of things, start having him cut certain types of promos that it just needling, and not specifically Austin, but you could sit there and throw some jabs at him, and just you have to do it in the right, the right city. So like I said, go to Texas when you do it, and maybe you get the response that you're looking for out of Austin, where he's willing to go one more time, or he just delivers a stunner or two here and there, and then that's when Punk calls him out. I just find it hard to figure out what show to put him on, like what night, and who's missing out. That's kind of where I'm trying to figure out is who moves off the card to make room for these two. So it's really difficult for me to really book it.
I'm sure there's some want with 40 being a big one, and obviously 50 being the next big one, to have a like a matchup that would gain mainstream attention like this one would, it would be the topic everybody's talking about all over news outlets. But I also think like you have, love him or hate him, a guy who you'd be crazy to bet on this thing still going well over the course of the next however long CM Punk is going. And
Yankees are closing on Soto.
yeah, that's actually what I just looked down at.
You're damn right.
Not surprised.
He's the best third baseman in baseball.
Nope.
Further back. Anyway,
Manager.
Wrong direction.
Oh.
I'm sure there's a want to do a big marquee matchup like this, right? And it's a big money thing for them. That being said, I just think like if you're going to do this, wait another year, see if the dude can get through a year, and continue on with the guys you have.
I agree.
But that's just me. I could also see their take being, we need to get and make as much money as possible off of this guy before something stupid happens.
The only thing that runs smack into that is, where's the money? Because they've already sold out Mania.
I know where the money is.
Merchandise.
Shane McMahon.
But you,
Oh God, let's not go down that road.
but you're gonna, you're adding this to an already sold out crowd. Might it bump up, the Peacock numbers? Maybe. But merch sales, you're going to get that anyway. I mean, let's be honest. Punk's prime merchandising opportunity is right now and has been for the last 2 weeks.
Punk will be the top merch seller for this company for a long time, more than
I don't know about a long time. They ebb and flow merchandise a lot more there, based on who's hot and who's not.
I will take that bet. Would you like to take the Eric Bischoff bet with me?
No, I'm not taking the Eric Bischoff bet.
I'll do it.
But I don't. He'll be a top 5 guy, sure. I'll say that. But it's going to ebb and flow.
Here's an idea: design a new T-shirt, please, and not just one that looks like an old Austin shirt. I love it, and I want one of the hoodies, but like, can we do something different? Like, I know they had to whip it together quickly. It's the same as the old one. The colors are just different. But yeah,
But they're not gonna. It doesn't help them, and especially it doesn't help them long term. Because if you come out of this with a Punk loss, which is what you're going to, because let's be honest, you're not bringing Steve Austin back to do the job. Steve's not coming back to do the job unless you can creatively entice him into it in such a way that it makes sense. But then you're just going to have to, you're 6 months into CM Punk back in the company, and now you've got to rebuild him again. Because he just went and got beat by a 60-year-old Steve Austin who hasn't wrestled in 2 years, who hasn't, consistently wrestled in 20 years. And where do you go from there? You can't walk out the next night and be like, Seth Rollins, I'm fighting you in Paris at Backlash. That's not going to fly.
that's my worry. Like, it's not so much that there's no benefits. I think there's a ton of benefits. The social media benefits. There's content creation benefits. You name it. The publicity alone is why they would do the match. But again, like, you have nothing the next night and for a while afterwards. Like, that's my worry, because I don't think in a million years they're going to book Punk over Austin.
No, I don't think that would happen either. But also the thing is when it comes to Punk, it's like, until we truly fully understand why he's back, even we know he's there to make money. We know that part, but it's like, I only see right now a few things that they're working on cooking up when it comes to Rollins, and obviously throwing out the potential of Austin, even though we know that's chances are it won't happen, but I know they are trying to see if it's even possible. And then you got McIntyre. But what about, is he going to be here to go after titles? Is he going to be here to try to bring up some of the younger talent and help put them over a little bit? Obviously I'm not talking about, losing to them, because we've seen, like, when AEW, some of the matches he had with, like, Darby Allin and MJF, they were amazing. They were great matches, and it really helped build their characters. I don't know if Punk's going to do that in WWE, or if he's just really going to be there for really just himself. So that's what I'm kind of waiting to see, what they're finally going to do, what he's finally going to say that's going to give us a true idea of why he's there.
Dude's being paid a shit ton of money on a very checkered recent history. Regardless of what you want from them, the dude better fucking do what he's asked. That's all I would say. Regardless of what he's asked, he better do.
I don't disagree.
Let's shift gears here a bit. You can be the biggest AEW fan in the world, but selling 2,800 seats at the Bell Center, is that what it's still called, Johnny? Is it still called the Bell Center?
Yes.
Okay, I wasn't sure. Sponsorship changes all the time. So, you sure it's not the Montreal Forum? Anyway, they taped Collision last night, I believe it was. And they had 2,800. I think WrestleNomics had 2,850 or something like that in an arena that can hold 18,000 for wrestling. Anyway, this isn't just then. It's a very common trend. So I just want to ask, obviously, all you guys, but I really want to get Johnny and Jared's take on this, because you guys have worked in, like, actually, you got people watching might not know this, but these guys have worked for wrestling promotions, ones local to them. You guys have been to all sorts of different venues. You've helped set up and take down, and obviously sometimes it's a little more complicated than people make it out to be. But, like, we're at a point where, I don't read too much into the social media stuff. Oh, here's Hardcam's side. But, like, they're going to a lot of arenas where they got it like 20% full. And it's been happening for months and months and months. I get it. You got to book way out in advance. But at one point do you go, maybe let's just book a little smaller of an arena? For example, Oshawa has whatever the hell it's called now. It was called the GM Center. That I think is like a 5,000 seater arena, and that's AEW is lucky to sell anywhere close to that many tickets right now. Would that venue, in your guys' opinion, that style of venue, that size of venue, work for what AEW is trying to do, or do they have to continue to go to these venues that sit, upwards of 20,000 and only be, for whatever reason, selling, 20% of the tickets? Obviously, they need to open up more blocks if they're doing well enough. The point is, they're not, so the other blocks don't get opened up.
Well, I mean,
that was my router.
That was.
I was like, I looked at the window, like, it's it. This is it.
It came across my phone. I was like, I think it was an Amber Alert. And then, but all of a sudden I'm like going, wait a second, I just closed my phone. And I looked and it was my router making the noise. I couldn't find it.
Reminded me of Kramer jumping on the plane at the end of Seinfeld there.
God damn.
But, okay, back to the issue.
Yeah.
I think some of them are bigger deals than not. I think last night was more of an anomaly because they sold great tonight. They had less than 1,000 tickets unsold for tonight's show.
No,
Yes,
come on. They didn't sell great today.
For Dynamite, yes, they did.
It's still an arena that holds 17,000, man.
I'm saying for the setup they had, the setup they used, they had a they had it set up for just under 7,000. So they
Yeah,
had
they
the
usually
upper
do
bowl taped
strictly
off.
lower bowl. The upper
Yeah, they
bowl
had the
they
upper bowl taped
never
off.
touch, like ever.
They had less than 1,000 tickets unsold for tonight's Dynamite. Last night was Collision in Canada. You're not going to sell tickets for that because unless you're paying for TSM Plus, you're not watching it. You're not watching Collision. So it was the diehards there last night. It's a Tuesday night. It's Montreal in the winter. It's a show that most Canadians don't actually watch. That was last night's issue. As a whole, I do think they're booking a lot more pay-per-view venues for TV than they should be lately. They do a lot better in the smaller venues, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Because, up until 15 years ago, the WWF was taping. The height of the Attitude Era, they were running in college arenas. So it's not an issue for me to say, we're coming to you from the arena at UCF in Tallahassee or whatever, or something like that, or a smaller arena, or the Knickerbocker Arena in Albany or something. Those are fine. You can do those smaller venues for TV and get away with it, as long as your pay-per-view's drawing the numbers in the bigger venues, which to this point they have been for the most part.
Now, do a lot of again, I'm not too familiar with the U.S., and obviously that's where most of their shows are. And I truly don't think last night was an anomaly. Sorry, I can't. Struggling to say that word, anomaly. Help me out here, guys.
Yep.
Anomaly. Yep.
Anal Molly.
I don't think it was a circumstance. I've been following WrestleNomics for quite some time. You got even Meltzer shitting on Meltzer of all people, pro AEW guy, pro Tony Khan guy, pro Young Bucks guy, shitting on the attendance at a lot of these events. And you can say that they don't open up the upper bowl, but guess what? If it was hot enough, they'd be opening up the upper bowl for these things. Is there just a mindset that they don't want to do smaller venues? Like, obviously up here you have a bunch of junior hockey arenas that fit 5,000. I think Tribute Community Center is 5,000. Is there less of those in the States? Like less arenas?
No, there's more, because you have the arenas on colleges and on campuses, where you have those sort of numbers. The field houses for basketball on most D1 schools is that 7, 8. It's about the size of a junior hockey arena, some even bigger. But there are comparable venues, so that's not the issue. It's
can they use their current setup in venues that size?
Oh, absolutely. They could use that setup in the arenas here. They proved that tonight when they announced the Canadian tour for next year. They're going to Bud in London for Rampage or one of them. They're doing a taping at Bud in London. So it's not the size of the venues so much that are the issue. They can do the smaller venues. It's the perception of doing those smaller venues. If you look at those numbers, and you're right, there are definitely issues with the bigger stadiums. Those are where we're having a harder time drawing the houses. It's also the markets they go back to too frequently. That's the thing. Like they're running a national loop, but they're running it mostly out of 7 or 8 cities that they go to consistently every few months. And then they sprinkle in and pepper in first time stops in certain cities, or they'll swing through Canada here, or they'll swing through the Northwest here, or the Southwest here, or the Midwest, but they're still hitting Chicago far too frequently. They're hitting those markets
California.
They're going to California far too frequently, and those are the places where they're in sort of that immediate area where they're struggling to draw because they're going there too often, and they've started booking some of the bigger venues than they should, and it's a lesson they need to learn, that TV is not drawing as a whole. It's not drawing. Even WWE is not drawing for TV well. So it's like, it's a downturn in business for everyone. It's not just an AEW issue. It's an entertainment issue. The live house is not drawing as well. So it's one of those things that's anomalous of, you can draw 70,000 people at Wembley, but you can't draw 10,000 people at a stadium in North America, at an arena in North America. Well,
Well, Wembley's special. I mean, that's the whole thing. If you only do Wembley once a year, you're going to get all those people. But like you're saying, they're going to Chicago all the time. They're going to Philly. They're going to, they're going to California. It's only the pay-per-views that really seem to be big draws right now. And even then, I think part of it's also, fatigue in terms of some of the storylines. So some of the characters aren't as interesting, and some of the stories aren't as good. So people are like, why am I going to pay money for that? I can just sit home and watch this on TV. I know, like with WWE cutting back on house shows recently, it's because Endeavor's like, yeah, we're losing money. There's no reason to have these.
I gotta
if we're gonna lose money.
I gotta jump on that one because I've been seeing that one a lot today, and it's not the house show loop they're cutting. They're cutting the C&D markets from the house show loops where they're losing money. Like, okay, great. You're not going to go to Boise, Idaho for a show. That's fine. I don't care.
They have been excommunicated from the WWE universe.
But it's being made out to be this, they're cutting house shows. Well, no, they're not, because they can't. Not to the degree that people think they are. This isn't the UFC where you can get away with just doing TV and pay-per-view. Wrestling, if you're not in front of a live audience, you're not working on your skills. You can have as great a performance center as you want. If you're not performing in front of a crowd, you're not getting better. You're not learning. You're not, You know
why those pay-per-view matches are so good? Because they ran it on the house show loop for the previous month.
Yep.
Like, it's essential to everything else. So you can't just cut that division out and be like, we are strictly a TV company. It doesn't work that way.
No.
Not for something like WWE. I mean, AEW is different right now, but WWE has always used their house shows as, even if it's not making, great revenue, it's a way to sell merch. It's a way to get guys ring time. It's a way to, get guys familiar with each other for running pay-per-view matches. It serves so many purposes that you can't just, gut it. I mean, yeah, you can get rid of some of the smaller towns. I get that. But the whole product in itself needs house shows.
I think you need to look no further than WCW to prove that. Their worst in-ring era was the era where they cut out the house show loop because they weren't making money. If you look at that, the early Bischoff era, 94, 95, when they weren't running house shows, you could tell they weren't running house shows because the matches were garbage.
What, people weren't paying to see Kamala versus Duggan?
Well, I don't blame them for that, but they weren't paying to see Hogan either. But the loop is essential.
Yeah, it doesn't. From what I read, it doesn't sound like it's going anywhere. It just sounds like they.
But that's the way, that's the headlines, right? They're cutting house shows. Like, no, they're not. They're cutting unprofitable house shows, which are the C&D markets, which, quite frankly, they probably shouldn't be going to anyway.
I mean, Nick Khan did come out and say that he doesn't want the performers on the road as much as what they have been before. He wants to cut down on the work. Triple H wants them to spend more time with their families, which makes sense because, like, you hear stories about like Bret Hart being on the road. What is it, like something like 300 out of 365 days? Yeah. If that's cut by half, you're probably okay and still keeping up with your skills and not running into 80% divorces amongst the rest.
Especially with roster that size. You don't need to be running 3 tours concurrently. You don't need to be running 3 house shows a night in the middle. Like, sure, that was the way it was in the 80s, but you needed the house shows to make the money back then. Like you needed that $1,200 house you got in the high school gym in Poughkeepsie. You needed that money to make payroll that week. Now you don't.
Or Larry Zabisco was going to be stretching people.
I don't know. I just think there's a lot of very cool, unique looking smaller venues that I think would look badass on TV if they went to them.
Oh,
I don't-
absolutely.
I agree.
Hammerstein's still around, but like its
The
look,
acoustics would be better too.
its look is fantastic. I like when they go to Daily Place. Obviously, during the pandemic, people probably seen too much of that place, but I like the layout of it. I like how it's different. I like the uniqueness of it. I think when you go to venues that only sit, 2,000, 4,000, 5,000, you get more of that personal look to some of them. And I'd like it. Whether they're willing to take a step back in order to do that, it kind of seems like they're not. But I just think it would look better. And if you believe anything Meltzer says, he says that the attendance is one of the big issues behind company morale being at an all-time low.
I can see that being a thing because you play to 2/3 of the crowd when you have to play towards the hard cam and there's nobody behind it. I can imagine that being frustrating and annoying because you want to play to people, right? So if you're playing across from the hard cam to the live crowd, which engages the crowd obviously in your match or whatever it is you're doing, if you're doing everything away from them to a camera and no people, there, like, it's not even like there's people in that section to react to what you're doing, where the rest of the crowd gets the idea and they get up for it. I think it can definitely be hard for talent to feel good about that, and I mean, it's hard because it's a TV product, so you have to do what looks best for TV. Problem is, you're sacrificing the interest of your live attendant crowd to do it.
It's it's hard for me to say there's issues. Like, there are issues, obviously. They are booking, like I said, they're doing too many bigger venues for TV when they should be focusing more on smaller ones. But when you can still sell, they've already sold 75,000 tickets for All In on nothing, on pure nothing. It's not to say that there's an issue. Like, it's not the interest that's the issue, but you need to figure out where that issue is, and it's running the same markets too frequently. It's booking too large a venue for TV. It's that's the problem. Like, when you're doing it, I'd have to actually look at the numbers, but my guess is most of the issues that they've run into with the low audiences are when you're doing Dynamite and Collision in the same market in the same week. Because that's not, you're splitting your audience. Like, you're forcing yourself to fill up a stadium, fill up your arenas twice from the same market in the same week, and that's not, it's not an easy thing to do for TV. Like, you can do a TV and a pay-per-view in the same market, but to do two TVs in the same market in the same week, it's stupid. Like, it's, you can say, oh, well, the production costs make it so much better, but it really doesn't if you move it, when you're going from traditionally a Wednesday night to a Saturday night, you still have, 3 days in between where you can move to a new city and set up somewhere else. Like, it's not as though the setup for a TV takes, very long. A TV setup is probably 24 hours tops. It's not costing you more to move it. Like, you have the time, you have the ability, move it to a new market. Be smart about it. Your routing is the issue, not your fan base.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully they start to move into some smaller venues. I think it'd be better, to be honest. If that's what the performers want to, if it's going to bring out better performances in them as well, and just keeping everybody happy. I think that would. I heard the argument about, well, the amenities are not as good in the smaller arenas. It's like, no doubt, but like at some point you got to make it look like you're not 80% empty. All right, let's shift gears here, guys. Once again, leaks can spoil things, and it leaked, and Rockstar said, fuck that, we're releasing it early. Grand Theft Auto 6 got its teaser trailer. I guess it's not coming until 2025. What did you guys, if you had a chance to see it, what did you guys think of it? Randy?
I thought it was really well done. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of GTA in general, but I liked the overall feel of it from what I saw the trailer. Also thought it was really cool, all the little digs at Florida, which I thought was funny. I was like, man, this is like Florida. This is great. But I actually liked this trailer better than what I saw from GTA 5. But I just need to see more of the story to really be able to tell just how good this is going to be. What they gave us was definitely a tasty little bit that diehard fans are easily just salivating, wanting it sooner. But as we've always said about games, take your time, do it right. And with this 2025 release window for this, I think that's exactly what they're going to do, and I think it's the right thing.
I mean, people are probably over the moon about it being Vice City again. I feel like that's the previous title that gets talked about the most. So for them to go back, I just want to see the map. I thought the map in 5 was a little lackluster compared to previous games. I thought there was a lack of variety in it, and if the teaser showed off anything, there seems to be a lot of variety where we will be, I guess, participating, if you will. Again, I'm not the biggest GTA fan, but I like picking it up now and then just to fuck around.
By fuck around, you mean beating up hookers and setting them on fire?
No comment.
Amongst other things.
Yes. I mean, hey, it shows it. I mean, literally in the teaser trailer, like, oh, well, there's a girl twerking on a car at someone. It's like, gotta have that in the teaser, right?
It's like a real life Florida game.
Well, it is. I mean, Vice City was always Miami. Everybody knew that. So now you're just getting to see more of Florida in this. You're not limited to just Miami. Now you've clearly got the Everglades now, and that's big for me. I like that. That differentiation of biome in video game. I love that, and Rockstar's has continually been getting better at that over the years, and I think they sort of hit it best with Red Dead 2. Where you had such a difference of biome in that Wild West. You had your plains, you had your your frontier towns, you had your big city, you had your swamp biome. Like that, you had the disparity of biome that I love to see.
It needed more draugrs.
It really didn't. It was bad enough it had Crocs. It didn't need draugrs. But I like seeing the vastness of, the area, whatever they end up calling it. I'm excited for it. I always was. I love playing GTAs. I love the stories of GTA. Rockstar is far and away the best story studio out there. For vastness. They do the best stories for me. They've never put out one that I didn't like. All of the Red Dead series, all of the GTA games, and then there's the sleeper titles like Bully. I loved that game. And the story in it was fun. I'm excited for this. I'm excited for this game. Having to wait until 2025 doesn't bug me because that's when I figured it was going to be. I didn't think it was going to be next year. I assumed 25 because that's usually the Rockstar way. You announce it over a full year ahead and then you do it. I figure it's probably going to be, spring 25, so it's not as far out. This isn't we're waiting a full 2 years. I think we're waiting a year and a few months. My guess is early April for when it actually comes out, because that's usually when Rockstar does their thing, is in April. At least for GTA. GTA has always been a spring release. So that's my guess. I'm thinking early April 25. If you believe the shirt rumor, it's going to be an April Fool's Day drop in 25.
That'd be cool. That'd be neat. Yeah, I mean, just do it right. Like we've talked about it on other shows where it's like, you get into these massive, 9-figure productions, take a little extra time and get it right. So that's what I hope for. We'll shift gears here again as we get towards the end of the show. Crystal Lake is set to come out in 2025 now, thanks to a strike that really sort of backed things up. Johnny, you're a Friday guy. I don't know where Jer stands on the Friday franchise, and I know Randy likes Friday. It sounds like with this show, Crystal Lake, which will feature Jason Voorhees as well, it sounds like tonally it's not going to have the same feel as the, maybe Fridays 1 through 6, that campy 80s feel to it, and that it's going to be a little more serious in tone. Do you guys think a more serious in tone Friday works? Can they make it work? Or are they making a mistake by going away from the campiness?
Depends on the story. Honestly, if the story's done right, the serious tone should work just fine. I know they're definitely. I'm fine with the new direction just because it's essentially, I wouldn't say a new generation, but we're getting something different anyway in having an actual series versus a 90-minute movie, which is just nothing but hack and slash, blood and guts, tits, all that stuff, which is what a Friday the 13th movie is. But with a series and the fact that you were going with episodes, there's time to have character development and actually see if you can actually care about some of these other characters beyond Jason. So I'm fine with it. I think it really has a shot at working as long as it's just done well and it's a solid story with a good script. I think it's gonna work.
I think you need to stop calling it Friday, because every time you do, all I think about is Ice Cube and Chris Tucker. So, but
Debo would fuck up Jason.
I want to see that fight.
Oh man. Oh, now I want to make a Zeus joke, but I'm not going to.
No.
But I don't have an issue with the tonality being different, because I don't mind my horror stuff not being just pure blood, gore, and slash 'em ups. Those are good, and I I enjoy them, but I'm also just as enjoyable watching, a visceral horror that's more, I don't want to say thought provoking, but that's more deep, on a thought level. I love my I love my suspense thrillers type movies. They are some of the ones I enjoy most because they keep you on your toes. Every time you think you have, I'm going to quote a great man, but every time you think you have the answers, they change the questions. And those are some of the best movies out there, because it just, it keeps you going. It keeps you thinking. It keeps you on your toes. And that's something that slashers don't really do. It's just chase the next kill.
I like Jason.
Yeah, I mean, hey, when you bring Bryan Fuller into a project like this, you probably should be expecting anything but just being your traditional campy 80s movie. So we'll see what happens. I'm open to it. Although I don't want to use the term elevated horror because I don't think it's going to be that per se. But I'm more into it when you got to think about it a little bit, and it's not just this, straight up slasher. So, I love Seven. I'm not saying it's going to be Seven either, but like that's my sort of thing, my cup of tea, if you will.
Yeah, Jason put out 7. That was the one with the mind chick and stuff.
That's a good one, actually. I don't mind that.
I mean,
haven't seen it in like 10 years, but
I'll take Bryan Fuller. I mean, the guy brought me Hannibal. That's all he needed to do.
Yeah, Hannibal was amazing. So, again, if you haven't seen it, definitely check it out.
If that's your cup of tea.
if not, stick to Friday the 13th, Part 3. You don't got to think about it at all.
House of the Dragon Season 2 had their teaser trailer this past weekend. And can I just say, I don't have too much to say on this. I'm curious to get, I don't know who all watched it or if any of you guys watched it. Randy, I think you did. All I really want to say on it, though, is like kudos to them for actually doing a teaser trailer where, here's our teaser trailer, but did we mention that it's 3 minutes and 10 seconds long and spoils everything? That's the new popular thing to do. And this wasn't. It was about a minute long. And I didn't think it showed too much, and yet showed just enough to let you know that things are going to be a little crazy compared to the first season. And I'm in. Like, I was more impressed with, I've seen it back 4 or 5 times now and still don't know specifically, what's coming necessarily. It's good. It looks great, like it should for Game of Thrones. And I thought it was just enough to whet our appetites. I wish more Hollywood projects would take this path.
I mean, it'd be nice if they did, but yeah, I'm definitely on board with this. It for what little was shown, it was definitely enough for me to be like, okay, let's go. I mean, obviously, I want to make sure that everything's polished and done the way they want it to be done. So I'll wait. I'll be as patient as I can, but I'm ready to digest season 2 as soon as possible.
I haven't watched the teaser because I don't want to. As crazy as that sounds, like I'm excited for season 2, but I know what's coming next, and I don't need teasers to get me hyped for this. As soon as it started leaking out what we were getting in the beginning of season 2, I'm good. Thank you. You don't need to tease me. I don't need to see trailers. I am prepared to be hurt by what is coming. And I know I'm going to be, because it's going to be intense and it's going to be everything I want it to be, but as soon as you teased the first time that I think the first episode is titled Blood and Cheese, that's all you needed. I'm good.
A Son for a Son is what the first one's titled.
Oh, they changed it? Because it was originally, when they first showed pictures of script, it was Blood and Cheese.
Blood and cheese is me after a night at Pizza Hut.
It's officially titled A Son for a Son.
Okay, but either way, the promise of that is Blood and Cheese, and that's, if you stick to the source. Thank you. I'm here. I'm good. I don't need any more than that. I know what's coming. I'm ready to be hurt. I'm ready.
Johnny, you're not missing much. It's a bunch of people with white hair walking around, and they look at a throne, and I think they're in water. That's great. I just watched it. It's good. I'm on season 1 still. I don't think I got spoiled on anything.
Did anything excite you, Randy? Was there anything that stood out more so than anything else that you saw in the trailer specifically, or teaser, if you will?
Just seeing like the dragon models. I've always been a fan of just dragons in general, so just to see like how detailed they, I mean, they've always been detailed, but it's just like getting to see them in action is always was exciting for me, especially when you see that old ancient dragon just flying over. I was like, oh, here we go. But it's just, yeah, I'm like Johnny. I'm ready because I know things are going to get wild and crazy, and obviously I'll have theories here, there, who survives and whatnot. But I'm ready. I'm ready for whatever they throw at us.
There's definitely going to be heated discussions on social media over a couple of things. That's for sure. So
always is.
Yeah, I can already see the lightning rods. And then last but not least, before we get out of here, somehow this creeped its way into existence after Johnny also said he didn't want to see it. This past weekend, Jared and Jensen teased that they do have, in fact, ideas for a revival, and they're talking with some writers now, and we'll see where it goes. Johnny, I don't know if you finished the Winchesters or not. I know we were watching it together there for a bit, and
I haven't finished it, but I do know how it ended.
Yeah,
we were talking about it. I can't remember if it was on air or off air, but yeah, I haven't watched it, but I know how it ends.
Again, there's very few comments to go off of, but this feels a lot like, okay, yeah, we'll come back for whatever limited, thing they do, because I don't think it'll be a full-time return, so that they can basically finish that story, but still call it, Supernatural. Jensen feels to me like that kind of guy who wants to finish his story. They left it in a place where it's not finished, but maybe they need to do it in a different way where Sam and Dean are highlighted.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's not so much that I don't want to continue the story. I just don't want to continue the story now. It's too soon for me to come back to this. I don't like this trend of sequel series a year or two after. They don't work. They've never worked. Anytime you've done sort of that last minute spin-off of characters inside of a universe where you do it, like it doesn't work. It doesn't last very long. It's very short term, or it's not what, it doesn't live up to what it was supposed to be. And I just don't want them to come back and do something that hurts the legacy of what came before it. And that's obviously a big fear for me about this, is them coming back to do a story that, while good intended, doesn't serve the purpose of ending it on a better note. That's sort of what I'm afraid of here. Like, the problems that I sort of have with the idea of this is more, even if your plan is to end the story and finish it's I don't need it right now. It's too soon for me. Let it breathe, let it rest, and then we can revisit this in 5 years.
It's already been, I think, 3 since it ended, but I do agree it does feel a little early. I don't know if it feels early and not, too early for them to do, hey, here's a 6-part series, and then we're done. I think, that would be fine, but it feels a little early if like their intent is to come back and do, 8 to 10 episodes a year or something. Randy, Jer, any thoughts on a potential Supernatural revival?
I hope they do it.
Yeah, go team.
Oh, I'm all for it as long as it's done for the right reasons and it is done well. Then let's go. I'm on board. I thought, me personally, I thought the way Dean went out was, even though we all knew the writing was on the wall, he was going to go down fighting, but his death just to me felt lackluster, and I felt like it should have been a little more than what it was, or honestly, him not dying at all and them just both going out at the same time. It's like I said, there was so many different ways they could have ended it. I was sad to see it go, and I would not complain at all about having whether it's a side series or just kind of an offshoot, because they're going to take it the direction of the multiverse and having it in a different universe. Either way, as long as it's done well and done right, I'm good.
I think my biggest, issue with the ending of Supernatural, other than, the pandemic ruined a lot, is Jensen Ackles was adamantly against the direction they were going with the character. And not just like a few weeks before filming it, he knew a couple episodes before the end of the previous season. And he's on record of saying, like, I tried to talk them out of it. I tried to get them to change it a bit. And basically, the showrunner at that time, Andrew Dabb, was, I don't know if him and Jensen and Jared necessarily all got along great, but he was going to have it his way, and he got it his way. And I think when you play a character for 4 seasons or 6 seasons or 8 seasons, it's a little different, especially if it's like a big cast too. When you are one of a 2-horse train that has done 15 seasons and are 50% of the reason why people tune in, you probably need to give the performer at least a little bit of creative control in terms of what happens. And Jensen being pretty bitter about the way it ended, it doesn't surprise me that they want to come back and do something else. It also would not surprise me if Eric Kripke ends up being involved in whatever they do.
I mean, with Jensen working with Kripke with the boys, I'm sure they've probably tossed around ideas here and there, especially with talks of a potential revival. So you're right. It wouldn't totally shock me at all if Kripke got back into the seat one more time.
All right. Well, oh, sorry, John. Did you have something?
I can see it, but Kripke's too busy making boatloads of dollars.
Did you unplug your mic a little bit by accident? Maybe we can barely hear you. He sounds distant, right, guys? It's not just me.
Yeah, it's not just you.
I can't hear you, Johnny.
That's because you're deaf.
There we go.
There we go. Sorry, you were saying.
Well, I was saying he's too busy making boatloads of dollars from Amazon to be worrying about the goings-on of Kansas.
Wouldn't be surprised if the goings-on of Kansas ends up on the goings-on of Amazon. So we'll see what ends up happening there. Before we go, gonna have some fun with this one. We'll play it back 2 months from now. I want 2 predictions of who could win the Royal Rumble, the Men's Royal Rumble this year. We'll go around the circle. Give me your 2 people. Obviously, we don't know who's going to be in it, so the guy you pick might not even be in it. And we'll start with Johnny. Give me 2 names. Who's winning the Rumble?
Okay, Cody Rhodes and Cody Rhodes.
He's so confident he only wants one. Jared?
I'm going to go with Cody Rhodes and CM Punk.
Randy?
Thinking about it, I think it's either going to be Cody or Gunther.
I'm going with is it Gunther or Gunther? I
I
honestly
think
don't
it's
know.
Gunther.
It's Walter.
It's
Well, I'm going with him because I've read a shit ton about him the last couple of months and how high people are on him. And I'm going to go with Punk because, Royal Rumble return, and if it's going to be him and Rollins at Mania, if there's a title involved, why not? Cody can go win an Elimination Chamber match or something.
it's horrible booking.
Yes, Johnny is on the anti-Punk train. It's okay. He's earned it. When he wins, though, we'll coddle you to bed that night.
I won't. If Roman wasn't on the run he's on, which seems destined to end at WrestleMania this year, then I'd be fine with that. But I think this time around, the Rumble winner needs to go after Roman in that run. You can't have the Royal Rumble winner turn around and be like, I want Seth Rollins, because no, you want the big dog.
If only we had an ECW champion for him to go after.
You win the Rumble, you're challenging the tribal chief. You're not going after Seth Rollins. That said, I think you'll get the Goldberg in the 2004 Rumble, where I don't know if you remember that one, where Brock was the champion at the time, setting up the feud with Goldberg, came out, eliminated Goldberg because he didn't want to face him at Mania for the belt. And then Goldberg set him up to lose to Eddie, and then they ended up with the god-awful worst match in Mania history. Yeah, I said it. Worst match in Mania history. Brock Lesnar versus Goldberg match at 20.
Have you seen Corporal Kirchner versus Nikolai Volkov?
I have.
You still want to stand by that statement?
I do.
I remember none of that at all. Well, that is going to do it for us tonight. Don't forget, after the fact, leave a comment. Let us know what's going on, what you thought. Punk, Austin, Mania. Johnny doesn't want it. Actually, I think all of us were kind of like, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Lots of good shit here. AEW, smaller venues. Hammerstein or whatever the hell it's called. Go there. Love that venue. We can call it AEW One Night Stand. Completely original.
The fact Tony hasn't booked there, being the huge ECW mark he is surprising to me. Like, hey, Tony, if only you had a traditional pay-per-view that has run out of that building many, many times to great audiences and crowds and filled that building up every year. Oh, wait, you do. Final Battle should have been at Hammerstein.
No, he'd rather sell 1,000 tickets to Hartford or wherever the fuck he's booking it the next week.
It's in Dallas.
Whatever.
And, where else?
You want to talk about an empty arena.
You know where else they could have sold 1,000 tickets? Hammerstein. And that would have been an almost full house.
Jer, where can everybody find you, man? What do you got going on?
You can find me on Facebook, Dark Match Drive Facebook page. All sorts of wrestling content there. I have a Discord where we watch wrestling together. It is lovely. And yeah, you can find me on Twitter at JBVirtue. And how come we didn't get into them canceling the Winchesters? Holy shit.
Fuck them. Shit. Pieces of shit.
Also, Juan Soto got traded.
Yes, he did.
Holy shit.
It's a huge day for stickball. Huge day.
Yes.
Randy, what do you got going on, man?
Well, you can find me on X, Twitter at Giggity Giles. Actually, when we get done here, I'm going to be jumping over and recording an episode of the Sports Brew tonight. So, talking football and boozing up. Like, it's a fun time. Definitely just Google it, Sports Brew. It should come pop right up.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff. Johnny, how about you? What do you got going on, dude?
You can find me here, there, and everywhere. Right now, you'll find me lamenting this god-awful Juan Soto trade.
Why is it awful? I haven't seen the details.
The prospects going back the other way are not good. Fifth ranked prospect in the Yankees system, 99th overall, and the 13th ranked Yankees prospect.
So once again, the Yankees find a way to pull off a deal involving prospects that seemingly aren't as good as a bunch of other prospects on other teams, and this reminds me of Stanton all over again.
Granted, they did take back Trent Grisham, and I'm pretty sure he's got a god-awful contract.
So if there's salary dumping involved, that's a little bit.
Yeah.
That's a little bit of a different story then.
Doesn't make it better, but doesn't, it's still Juan Soto for a hot dog and a handshake.
Ooh, a handshake.
Ross could have given him that hot dog and a handshake.
Well, that's good.
Okay, we're getting Ohtani.
I'm sorry. We didn't say that. This is a podcast that he might be talking about. We can't talk about that. That's not good. Our luck that Ohtani's people would be watching this and hearing us blab about it. So we're not doing that.
It's not
Touchdown.
And I've already said it. If it does happen, I'll take a pie in the face on cam.
He did say that. I have the receipts.
Yes. Johnny said he would eat cat poop if it happened.
I said no such thing.
Fuck y'all guys. Let's go Reds.
I said no such thing.
We're bringing it home next year.
That's all, folks. Good night.